Awesome. Well, thank you guys for willing to spend the time judging our books again. I don't think we have any newbies, so this should be short and sweet and more of a refresher, but there are a couple of new things COVID related we want to make sure and point out to you. So we've got the slideshow as a visual for you, so we can run through that. If you want to hit the next slide.
Colleen, can you send out that slideshow? Because I'm just calling in. I don't have a screen.
She's on mute, but yes, she will.
Yeah, sorry, yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, we'll give her just a second to, if you want to flip that to the judges.
Sorry, I'm afraid my dog is gonna bark, so I'm trying to keep myself on mute. So we don't have that. Okay. One second.
While she's emailing out to everyone, as a reminder, BOMA obviously will do their best to make sure we don't have any conflict of interest, but please let us know if you've been assigned to a building or a team that would prevent you guys from being able to judge fairly, like a current coworker, your best friend, a former building you may have been involved with, or, you know, God forbid, a manager who fired you, etc. I mean, obviously, Colleen and the staff are all new, so they don't have that long time history. We can reassign you if need be. All of our judging, just like in recent years past, will be done online through that TOBY portal. I'm not sure if Colleen has already sent that out. If not, she will. So there are detailed instructions that will be sent on how to log on and do and access your books and make all your comments online. So again, the judging does take time, so just let us know if something comes up and you won't be able to do it. So, Colleen, have you emailed that to everybody?
Yes, and can everyone see the presentation? It wasn't letting me go next in full screen, so I had to do it like this. Can everyone see?
Yes, looks good.
Okay, and it's sent, so.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, next slide is just our entry requirements. So just a reminder to please go ahead and print those out for your building that you're judging prior to judging and read through it. So you kind of have an idea. There's a lot of stuff to be judged as you're reading the book. And don't assume that those requirements are same year to year. Like I said, we'll point out for sure the new COVID items that were related to, but there's going to be some things occasionally that they slip in or alter slightly. And make sure that we don't assume that the requirements are same for each category. I think all we have are office, so it should be nice and easy. But you know, sometimes we have industrial or medical or retail, and their requirements are different. So don't just assume it's the same every category you may have judged in the past. If you have a question on a requirement, something you're not sure, just email the BOMA office and we will seek clarification. We'd rather you ask questions than assume wrong. There are judging mistakes inadvertently each year on all levels, local, regional, and international. So please just take a moment and ask a question and we will seek clearance for you guys. Next slide. The scoring, so there will be a judge's checklist available for each category. Please use those. That is very helpful when you're going through to make sure you didn't skip something or overlook something. Comments, so they're vital, right? And it's awesome that you say great job and give them nice compliments, but what is really helpful is if you give constructive criticism to maybe why points were taken away. So that goes a long way, more than just telling them they did a nice job. So if you have a recommendation, something that wasn't clear in the book or something that they missed, those are the comments that are going to be more helpful. You are not allowed to specifically ask them questions outside of your portal, right? So you can't email them, somebody you know, and seek guidance that way. So all your comments need to be made on that portal. And just to remember that you're judging the team, not necessarily the building. So if you've got two buildings, one has 24-hour security and the other one does not, that is not a negative reflection on the management team for the other building. And also just keep in mind, we are preparing the books for international. So it's critical that you're critical here. So it's not just thinking about local or regional, but we're really trying to prep these books to hopefully go on and compete at the international level. And if you guys have any questions, please stop me at any time before we go on to the next. So we'll do our best. Next slide. The photos, we just need to make sure that they are all accounted for, right? So using that checklist, if there's something missing, please let them know. We want to make sure that they're clear, they're not fuzzy, they're easy to view. The photos are free of defects, and what we mean by that is, you know, your building picture doesn't have trash in the parking lot, and we've seen all of this before, unfortunately. So that's the kind of criticism, constructive, that they're looking for here. And are they, you know, legible? Can you open them up? Are they clearly labeled? And they don't have to be professional, but they do need to be a step above you taking one on your cell phone from inside of your car driving by the building. So again, just keeping in mind that international and regional judges will never be able to see this building in person, so all they have to go off are photos. Next slide. The building description. So what you're looking for in this section is, does it vividly describe the building and its location? Again, regional and international will never see this building, so they need to be able to picture the building from this description here. And there's a lot of criteria, so a lot of detail that needs to go in there, make sure that they account for everything. And importantly, can you verify the building is in the right category? So here it should quantify it's in the right square footage. If it's mixed use, what are all the three mixed use? If it's industrial, so be very specific. We have had a mistake before on a book that I judged that I caught it was not in the right category. So please make sure, kind of in this section, it should make sure you're in the right category. Next slide. So building standards, we call them nuts and bolts. There is a lot of data in here. So this is where your checklist is going to be very helpful in making sure that we've accounted for everything. So if there is something that is NA that they don't have or doesn't pertain to their building, it would be great for them to just note that they don't have it versus the reader not knowing if they forgot it. So if you see something they don't talk about, go ahead and just ask that question in your comment section. And something that new that I'm not sure when they added, but if someone did not get the maximum points in this section, but they are a BOMA 360 designee, you can add 1 point to make sure we're doing that. And something very important too is this TOBY inspection verification form is an attachment required in this section. If they don't have it, you need to stop because this automatically disqualifies them. And unfortunately, I judged international this last year, and there was an entrant in there without that verification form, and we had to disqualify them, and they were the best entrant. So it's what a disservice their local judges and their regional judges did to that entrant by not catching that. So if there is something that is not there, stop and call the BOMA office immediately. Also, if there's a verification form, but they put on there that they did not see certain things, stop and call the BOMA office because it has to have everything accounted for or they're automatically disqualified. Again, this is something that they added a few years back and it's had a lot of confusion here. So please make sure that this is very important. Any questions on that? Okay, we'll move on to the next slide then. So community impact. So COVID. What they're allowing in this section is examples and data that occurred over the past 24 months, because we understand a lot of activities at our buildings we were not able to do due to COVID. So this was something new. They can talk about it for the past 24 months. Everything else is pretty standard. Here what you're looking for is, all the events. So things that you did at your building, maybe that your company did and your management team participated in, or if you had an individual staff member that also does community projects on their own, all of that can be listed. Also, what's important is, did they quantify their contributions? So how many backpacks were collected? How many pints of blood, etc. They can't just use vague words like a lot or several. You're looking for actual data here. And a lot of people forget the tax impact, and that's a large community impact the property has, the tax impact, how much taxes were collected and what areas did the city use that for hospitals, for a community college, etc. How was that allocated out, and the number of jobs that the building contributes to the community. A lot of times those are missed, and those are very important. Any questions on community impact? Okay. Moving right along to tenant relations. Same thing, COVID, they're allowing up to 24 months of data to be referenced here. Also, they need to include how the team communicated with their tenants during COVID, and they can also include 3 photos of how they fitted their building for COVID. So if they, had air filters, if they had signage, if they, whatever they did, their sanitizing stations, etc. So this is going to be a way that a building can stand out here on their efforts that'll be something new that no one has seen before. Everything else was pretty much the same. Their communication efforts, again, that should be proactive and reactive. Their building description of all of their building amenities and discussing if they were free or for a fee. Tenant surveys. So this one is a little weird this year. When the entry requirements first came out, they had removed tenant surveys as a requirement because due to COVID, you probably didn't have tenant surveys. If it appears on your judge's sheet that they did not talk about it, that is not points off. So just FYI on that one. Of course, if they did it and want to talk about it, that's awesome. Pretty much that's it for tenant relations. Are there any questions on the changes for tenant relations? Okay, next slide then. Energy conservation, obviously for COVID, they're going to allow up to your data that's submitted up to 24 months old. And education as well, obviously can be online and virtual training that was done. If it's applicable to this category, they must share their data with BOMA. So again, failure to do that will disqualify them. So please, please, please check that. This section is worth the most points, so it should be packed with information, as they can include up to a 3-year history on efforts made, if you will. Again, quantification goes a long way here on how much money was saved, percent saved, kilowatt hours saved. They need to back up their statements. And again, keep in mind, this is a management team award. So a building that's a brand new building that is built LEED certified versus a management team that spent 4 years getting a building from the 80s LEED certified. Just make sure that you're weighing in the efforts here. We do see quite a bit of mistakes in this category, in this judging, because not all categories require Energy Star, AKA industrial. And we see that mistakes made all the way up to the international level. So please, again, read the category that you are judging. It may or may not require it. And no, it does not have to be certified. So we see mistakes made all the way up to the international level for this too. It does not have to be certified by an engineer. It is your statement from the Energy Star website. Are there any questions on this section? Okay, we're moving on to environmental. A lot of data here. So it's environmental, regulatory, sustainability, and waste. So there are a minimum of 7 programs that they have to talk about. 3 have to be environmental and regulatory, 3 sustainability, and then the waste management plan. Obviously, if they have more things to talk about, by all means, they should. The more things you have and the more things you can brag about, the more opportunity for points here. But again, they only have to have 7. So if that is all they discuss, that's all they're required to do. They can pick any 7 that they want. So important here, not necessarily at the local and regional level, but very important at the international levels. If they talked about programs that they did because the government required them to, or if they did it voluntary on their own. At international level, several states and countries require that they do all kinds of things. So a lot more weight goes if someone's doing it because they want to be good stewards to the environment. So if they don't note that, ask those questions in your comments. Any question on this section? You guys are easy. Okay, so next slide is our emergency preparedness. Obviously, COVID update. You can include your data going all the way back to 24 months. Probably no one did fire drills this year, or if they did, they were really easy to do because no one was in the building. Making sure they're discussing training for everyone. That includes the staff, you know, the security, maybe what the security team's company are doing with the staff, your tenants, etc. Drills, all kinds, shelter in place, fire, chemical leaks, active shooter. It doesn't just have to be quote unquote fire drills. And of course, if their building has any real life examples of stuff that actually happened and how the team responded to it, that would be great for them to include in there as well. Moving on, training. We can clarify for sure during COVID that our training includes virtual and online training. Not a lot of in-person training happened. So this section, make sure you understand the difference between qualifications of the staff and a job description. We're not looking for them to tell us what an admin does or what an engineer does. We're looking for the qualifications, a short professional bio, if you would, of the staff that's in place. Making sure that training, you can include what they did last year, what they did this year, and future plans if they're actual classes, specific things that they have planned for. This should be both individual and team efforts. So the team meetings that you're doing and training together, as well as individual, if someone's going through an RPA class or an engineer class separately, all of that can be talked about. And just checking their org chart, make sure it's clear, organized. You can, you know, make heads or tails of it. If there's anything that looks funky or doesn't understand, and make sure you're asking those questions and pointing that out in your comments. And next slide is just a recap, guys. So there's not that much that's new, just a few things for COVID, making allowance for, but again, we're trying to prep these books for international. So our award-winning books are always going to be a well-written book. They're going to use the maximum words allowed. I mean, if you've got some sections where they've used the max words and some they've got 2 short paragraphs, they need to note that. That means they don't have enough to talk about. They need to either add a bunch of programs or someone needs to go ahead and add a lot more comments to it. Make sure everything is nice and well and organized and thought out. They need to visually describe their building, their team, and how they operate. Again, they need to have professional looking photos and attachments. They don't have to be necessarily professional, but they need to look it. Spelling errors are common. So if you note and see anything, please point that out to them, give them an opportunity to correct that. And all the attachments are accounted for. And there's several books that we see, unfortunately, that are missing some of those attachments. So really that is it. I don't think there's anything major crazy other than just a COVID allowing some 24 months in there. Everything else should be pretty much the same. If anybody has any questions or if anybody else on the committee wants to point out anything to the other judges, please, by all means, let us know.
As you're judging these, a lot of you have judged regional and international before. Look at it And because we know so many mistakes are made, common mistakes are made by judges, you know, point out to them if you think, hey, I know this isn't required, but I think you should put it in here because an inexperienced judge might count off for it. Such as the Energy Star, you know, having to be stamped. That's not a requirement, but so many judges count off for that. I've seen it time and time again in the comments. Energy Star was not stamped, and it's not a requirement. So, you know, this year I put in the one that was stamped just because so many judges miss it. So if there's something that you think another judge might miss and it would be better for them to just put in anyway, even though it's not required, let them know that.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Or need clarification on something?
Mary,
Where
I
would
do
you
have a
decide,
question.
what we're judging?
Sorry, was that Regina?
Yeah, so it used to be they were required to be BOMA 360. Is that no longer a requirement?
No, that was never passed. International has been trying to get that passed. It has not passed as of yet.
Okay, I thought it had been. Thank you for the clarification.
Sure. No problem. JJ, do you have a question?
This, yeah, I was wondering when we're getting assigned the books that we're judging.
That's
And
Colleen.
is there any committee desired etiquette as far as reaching out to the person who wrote the book? In the past, I know they try to keep it anonymous, but I typically like to call the person and find out how brutally honest they want me to be.
So I will send those out either today or tomorrow. Yours, I think 3 of our 4 buildings are Crescent, so I feel like we could take, so yours will kind of be the one that's not Crescent. Yeah, so what's y'all's thought on that? Because I know Susan Lineweaver really liked, and she's on the call, so I'm sorry I'm calling you out, Susan, but she liked one of her judges last year and she wanted to know who it was because she had like questions on how they judged and stuff. So that, what's y'all's thoughts on that? I mean, 3 of the 4 entrants are on this call, so.
Well, for me, I'd love to get everybody's eyes on it. I know that we got to be particular about how it's scored. Just for, you know, authenticity of the competition, but I'd love everybody to get eyes on it and rip me a new one because, you know, anybody who's competed before knows that like a lot of times you don't get great comments back, and so you never know. Like I could have had a 99 for all I know, you know what I mean, or I could have a 60. You never know. So I just, you know, knowing everybody here and knowing that it's local and, you know, this will be good for Dallas and everybody else. I'd love for everybody to take a swing at it, or anybody who's willing to, and you know, be as brutally honest and ruthless as you can be. Because
well, JJ knew this year what the committee is doing for all of the local winners. The committee is offering a committee review from as an option for us to put our eyes on your book and to offer that second level of a second round of judging, if you would, before it moves on to regional. So, because you've got award winners, several international award winners, I know at least 4 on the committee.
That's awesome. I like that.
So we're trying to utilize what we have, the talent on the committee, again, not necessarily, I'm not judging, I may not judge your book, but just offering that service, like you said, more eyes on it, because you do get a chance to tweak your book before it goes to regional.
Just to add to that, I honestly think you need to be brutally honest, period. I mean, if they had bad sentence structure or, you know, something just doesn't paint the picture it needs to paint in your head, they need to know that, because again, people on the next level have never seen the buildings. And if they can't understand what they're trying to get across in their words, like if you can't understand it, they're not going to understand it. So you don't need their permission to be brutally honest.
Right.
That's what
and
we're
that's
here
why,
for.
yeah, we pointed out it's critical that you're critical. Like I can't tell you how many comments we get back, and I'm not picking on local, I'm more picking on at the regional level, and they just repeated how awesome everything was and didn't give anything constructive. When I read it, and I was like, I found 30 things that I would have said, right? So don't waste your time telling them how awesome they are. If there's something wrong, let them know, or if there's something that you can do to improve it, let them know. Definitely, those are more vital for sure.
Yeah,
And for that reason, historically, I believe the judging has been anonymous so that they can know and feel like no one's going to know who's making those comments. So they'll be more inclined to be more, they'll be more honest. That's from a historical standpoint, from what I believe, I recall.
international, a lot comes down to 1 point.
You broke up, Angelique. What'd you say?
Angelique, we can't.
Oh. I'm not muted. You can't hear me?
Now you can, barely.
I guess my new intercom and speaker isn't working very well. Yeah, my thing. I was just going to say that it comes down to 1 point a lot at international. So anything you can help them with, that 1 point makes all the difference.
Any other comments or questions?
Do we know the timeline of when, I know Colleen said she was going to try to get those out today, but what's the deadline to get these done?
You have a month, so you'll have, I'm trying to pull up the exact date, but you will have, it's mid-January. Let me see if I can pull it up. So you'll have it an exact, I believe it's, so it's Monday, so it'll open up on this Monday, I believe, December 14th, and it'll close January 14th. So you'll have quite a bit of time.
Okay.
But please don't wait until the last day if possible. Last year, I had like 4 judges wait until not only the last day, like the last 2 hours before it was due, I was calling them, and I don't think they judged as well as they could have because they judged it in 30 minutes.
Right. So again, that's what we're saying. If something comes up, guys, we understand. If somebody gets COVID, if something happens, just let us know. We've got other judges that can step in. So we much rather, pass on you than have you slam dunk something. It won't hurt our feelings, I promise. All right. Well, thank you again. We appreciate you guys lending your time for this very important process. If y'all have any follow-up questions that you think of, please feel free to reach out.
Awesome.
Thank you, Mary.
Thanks,
Have a good one,
Mary.
everybody.
Well done.
Bye, guys. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Great job.